Hello, hello. It's Melissa Santana, co-host of the Miss Texas Show. Excited as always to bring you another edition of our show, another wonderful story, and some wonderful guests that you will get the chance to hear from. Today, we got a double whammy. We have a mother-daughter duo. Known as Denise and Kaylee, but actually more affectionately known as Coffee and Coco. And so they are a mother daughter duo. They are advocates, but they also have a platform where they actually not only share their own conversations once a week, but they also interview other survivors, and they interview them and have conversations with them. But they also the mom as well, Coffee, also known as Denise, also has her own clubhouse that she has. It's an extension of the work that she does with Coffee and Coco. So there's resources, there's healing, there's all these wonderful things. But basically, they're also just a joy to hear from as the wonderful and bubbly mother-daughter duo that they are. So I am super excited that you're going to hear their story today and look forward to you tuning into it. Thank you.
The Ms. Texas Show is a voice of hope for victims, survivors, advocates, and community leaders against gender-based violence to share their stories and resources. We began showcasing life in Texas. Today we are impacting lives not only in Texas, but also around the world. Under our segment Military Time, we run this segment in partnership with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. We invite military and veterans who have overcome traumatic events to share their experiences during and after their military service. Under our beauty segment, we invite fellow pageant winners and contestants, artists, musicians, actors, models, and dancers, and last but not least, our survivor leaders from family violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault, stalking, and other traumatic events who are ambassadors for these causes to share their lives and the impact they have made. To become a guest on our show, email us at msusatexas@gmail.com. If you would like to support victims and survivors of gender-based violence, make a tax-deductible donation to Hope Picks Global at www.hopyxglobal.org.
Hello, hello, everyone. Melissa Santana, your co-host of the Miss Texas Show. So I get to be like doubly excited today because I got double the guests. So like I'm super, super pumped. So I'm super excited to tell you all about our mother-daughter duo known as Coffee and Coco. Um, Yay! So yeah, super, super pumped. And so with that, I want to formally introduce them. A girl in the third grade told her mother while traveling down the road, I want everyone to have a Miss Rebecca. They could have never imagined that 3 years later, they would become Miss Rebecca's all over the world. Miss Rebecca was the name of a woman who helped that little girl find her voice and open up about the abuse, including the sexual abuse that she had been experiencing. They are now known around the world as the mother-daughter duo Coffee and Coco. Coffee and Coco continues to advocate, educate, and raise awareness about child sexual abuse. They are willing to stand and use their voice, including the laughter they bring to tough conversations that are needed around the world to build trusted relationships. So please join the conversations that they are trying to normalize so that everyone knows they are not alone. So yes, I love that, super support that. And so with that, I'm super excited to have y'all. So hopefully, I don't know in what order viewers are going to see, but we get the pleasure of being have heard from Coffee herself, and we also got to hear from Coco herself, and now you'll get to hear from both. So yay. So I'm glad. But if y'all haven't seen all the other interviews, if this is y'all first one, y'all gonna have to see the other ones too. So I encourage everybody to see all three. And so definitely do that. But since I have both of you, I of course still want to open up the floor first to ask, okay, so like what is it like as the mother-daughter duo of Coffee and Coco, but also what's it like when it's not like Coffee and Coco? What is your relationship like? Just what's it like just being y'all two together? It's my first question.
You want to go first? You're right. There's another side that happens. We still run a home. We still, Coco's still 14. And she goes by another name when she's not being Coco, and she's a child, and I'm still a mother. I still have to run a house. I still have to have chores. I still have to have, so she still has her typical, like I did as a child, So I think, there's all of it, but I'm so blessed, and, I've always felt blessed by my children, but I think just don't know. Somebody described it as my children respect me. They have a deep level of respect, but there's like so much love and understanding and stuff. So, they do have rules, and I feel like I have great and amazing kids. So, I mean,
Amen.
but am I annoying? Absolutely. I'm that mom too. I'm a dork. I'm annoying. I'm goofy. I'm, whatever. I'm not cool. I'm all those things too.
Absolutely. We'll take it all. Well, yeah.
I don't know. Did I just cover what I wasn't?
You're good. It's mainly we get more into emotions and understanding and figuring out where things come from
Right.
with what happens. Like if one of us were to have an outburst, that was clearly not a good reaction or a way more escalated reaction than it should have been.
Right.
She gets to the problem fast. She's like, okay, we need to know what's going on here. She gets down to the court. So,
Yay.
it's better.
Yo,
I like it.
absolutely.
Good. Because it's annoying sometimes to have to process and deal with your emotions. So my children find it annoying sometimes as well, but I just believe in getting to the root.
Absolutely. Well, and I was gonna say we definitely got to start with that because y'all just touched on the gem there. Is that communication? Absolutely. Because I will say, so I'm a mom as well. I have three daughters, and they are 4, 6, and 8. So my oldest is only 8 years old, but she does act like a teenager. So I feel like there's some that I can relate to on. I mean, not gonna lie though, goals. This is goals right here. I hope that she and I can, have this level because it is really evident though. I mean, I just met y'all, but I adore your relationship, but also just that like it is like super cute to see, but also just that you both have like this light, you know what I mean, that you shine, but also like you see it shine even brighter like when you're together. And I'm just like, you can tell you genuinely like each other. And I swear, like I joke about this, but like I was in a group and I was like, I actually like my kids. And they were like, I would hope you would. They're your kids. I'm like, no, you love your kids, but I mean to actually like them. And so like, I'm just saying, like, I'm talking about I actually like them. Like we talk, I learned about their interests. So I agree. I just think communication definitely is needed, to be honest. And that's honestly what I want to ask next. Is so like, what's that like? Because I mean, I'm sure like it's already hard when you have multiple children, like for you. And then of course, being a daughter, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of responsibility that come with that. But like, how has that been like developing that communication over the years? And especially with all the new obstacles that you may be facing, Coco, being a teenager and all the things you go through. So, next question for you.
Well, one of my favorite stories, because I think we as parents and just we as people, we like to fix things.
Yep.
And so I still tell this story, and it happened. I don't even know how many years ago it happened.
It happened that many years ago.
Okay.
It happened like a year ago.
Oh no. Okay.
Fine. 2 years ago.
But I love this story because it just shows what we try to do as people. And it was a story where I'm in the wrong, right? But I think it's something that we do as people so often. And I know, I think I'm better at not doing it, but we
You
like
still
to
have your moments.
Yeah, I still have my moments. So we like to fix things. And we were in the driveway at our old house, and Coco was spewing out just, I don't even remember what it was about. And that's irrelevant. And so I started to try to solve the problem. And Coco, I loved it. And it's just made such a huge impact on me. Coco just looked at me and she said, "Stop. I need you to listen." And it was like, oh, okay. That's all I have to do is listen. Like, I don't have to solve a problem right here.
Right.
And I think so many times we as adults, we as parents, we as teachers, we as spouses or boyfriends or girlfriends or like we think we have to solve somebody else's problem. And here I went into this mode of like trying to solve her problem. And it was so great because she just immediately was able to say, "Stop." And she knew that that's not what she needed. She just needed me to listen. And I think that that's a lot of our problem in our societies. And so it was just a huge lesson for me. And I share that story a lot just for the simple fact that, spouses do it to each other. Like everyone, we bosses, co-workers, we tend to try to solve people's problems by telling them what they need to do. And the one thing I know is that my children are amazing and they know what they need to do. Do they sometimes need me to listen so that they can clear out their junk in their head so they can get to the solution. Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes do I forget that step? I do.
Right.
So, but I think most people know deep down what they need to do. We have our own internal systems, but of course, as survivors of child sexual abuse, like I say, our GPS systems get broken at a very young age, and then we have to figure it out. So we have to get back to that GPS, or heal it, or fix it.
Right. And would you agree, Coco? Because what I'm curious about too is that, like, so that being able to communicate your needs and all that, do you think that was just innate? Like, you always had that? Do you think your mom, like, subconsciously helped with it? Like, where do you think you got all that from? Like, to be able to even do that?
It was definitely the healing that helped. My mom supporting me and knowing that she would help me and she would be there for me as much as she could. And then the counselors reassuring me that I'm good, I can follow what I think, that I'm not messed up in the head as much as I think I am. And that all helped me with my going on, I guess.
Absolutely. And that day, because I do love that story. So that day that your mother is describing, like in that moment. So same, like, have you had similar experiences where you've had to voice your needs in that way, you know what I mean, and always been met? Or like, do you feel like you just, over time just figured it out that like sometimes, how did you gain to that level of understanding where you're like, you know what, sometimes I don't need you to say anything. I just need you to be my listening ear right now.
Usually I wouldn't scream out like I did. Like I literally screamed. I'm pretty sure the neighbors would kind of be concerned.
I don't think you were that loud, but
I don't know. But I felt I was loud.
Right.
But usually I'll kind of like voice my boundaries, or I will voice my boundaries. Right. But most of the time, if like someone like gets something wrong, and I'll be like, "Oh, they got that wrong. Okay," and then just kind of move on. I'm not really picky about like pointing out the obvious or pointing out when someone is wrong. It's more of when they do something wrong and it affects me.
Right.
Either mostly negative, but sometimes positively. It just doesn't settle with me, right? So then I'll be like, can you like stop there? Because like you may be complimenting me right now, but it feels like empty compliments. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And that's why I love, like, so I do work with, speaking of young people, I work in a high school with young people, and they are brutal with their honesty. Like, they will let you know, they will let you know. So I think they're like tremendous judges of character, but I love it because I'm like, yeah, I agree. I only would like to come with genuine intentions and call me out. You know what I mean? If it's not, but I think like, I want to see more of that. Like with those of us who are in that kind of line of work who want to help others, that it's coming from a genuine place. And so that's what I love about, your relationship is that it's definitely genuine. I don't think like there's anything staged about it. You know what I'm saying? Like the good, the bad, but also just like that, I feel like that's what's beautiful about your authenticity is that you don't mind being vulnerable with one another. Like that's at least the vibe that I get, And so I just wonder, like, was that just natural for you? Has that also been part of the journey? Like learning how to be vulnerable with one another? Because that's what I would definitely, and of course I would love for you, Mom, to start with that part is that, because I know it's not always easy though, right? For adults to, lean into that vulnerability, especially with their children. So like what that has been like for you.
Of course, yeah, it definitely was not in the script book, and it wasn't in the playbook. It was something that came from the journey, and it's one of those things like, do you wish that you to walk the steps that I've had to walk as a mother? Absolutely not. But do I know that many of this connection that I have is because of the journey? And so I don't want to trade this connection. I don't want to, but being vulnerable, and I have to give huge credit to Coco. I don't know how she does it. Some say it's because of me. I say it's because of counselors. Like, it doesn't matter how. I think a lot of it is who she genuinely is. Just like in the 3rd grade, when she got that voice of freedom, she wanted everyone to have it. And so I have to give this huge shout out to her, that Coco has this amazing ability, even in our home, which is the hardest place to have it. It's almost like she knows when to hush and she knows when to speak. And that was kind of what she was talking about. I think a little bit that you were alluding to was she can correct me, and she does it in such a way that's kind of kind and compassionate, but yet you've overstepped, Mom. And so she helps, when we as parents, and Is it tough sometimes? Yeah, because I want to be defensive. I want to be defensive. I want to give my reasons. I want to, and that's annoying and everything else. But Coco really does. She challenges me to be a better person.
Right.
And she causes me to be a better person. She lets people be who they are, as long as they don't, and it actually, she lets them be who they are regardless. But if they are impacting her space, she knows how to build a protective bubble within the same room as people who are not necessarily, like she's been in situations with peers or whatever. And it's just amazing. If I could have been just a quarter of what she is when I was her age, I mean, oh my gosh. So it just, she blows my mind to watch her be able to do that as such a young kid and have that freedom. And it's like, I don't know, I just wish that everyone could experience that. I wish I could have experienced what I see my daughter do. And like, if she's around peers and they're not necessarily being very good, Coco knows how to take herself over in that corner and, get lost with a book or whatever. And she's able to let people be who they are. And I think as a society, but that doesn't mean that she approves of their behavior. It doesn't mean that their behavior is correct, but she knows how to stay in her lane, and she knows when, and that's a huge thing, I think, that many adults don't know. I mean, it took me, and I'm still learning, but she just seems to be kind of almost like natural at it. It's mind blowing. I don't think I answered your question, but I had to shout out to.
Oh no, definitely. And so, as usual, that's usually how it goes with you and I. But I'm always enthralled, so I'm just like, no, please. You could keep talking all day, and I'm gonna hear it. Listen to all of it. But no, I agree. And if anything, all I was thinking was, do you agree, Coco? Like, do you think do you see it similarly to the way your mother described it? Like, what I mean? Do you have different views? But also, like, what's that like to get to that level of discernment? Because clearly it means that you have a level of discernment and great judgment that like your mother said, I agree. I don't know many adults that have it. And I agree with her. I'm still working on it also. And it's definitely a work in progress, but I'm just curious like how you got there and just do you see it the same way your mother does?
I do see it mostly the same way that she does. Only because I can see it from her point of view. But like it normally for me it comes kind of naturally. Like I can't be mean to someone constantly. I will like pick on them, joke a little bit, be like, haha, you're so mean kind of thing.
Right.
But they know I'm joking because I've built that relationship and that trust. But it has especially helped with counseling to not be on my toes, ready to punch someone if they come near me, or ready for them to punch me if they come near me. Being like, okay, they're gonna punch me, just let it happen kind of thing. But I think I was, from most of my teachers, they've told me I was born with it, but I was born with it, but then to add on to that, I have learned and seen from other people's point of view. This is really hard to say because I do not like talking about myself like this much and giving myself so much credit. But like, I know it's from the people I've been around that have added positive and the negative, where I can kind of grow from that to help me react in a good way.
Absolutely. And I think that, and that's the big thing that you were making me think of is that, so we're humans, so we're definitely going to have real emotions, real feelings towards things. And I think, but it's definitely that, like with what we're talking about with like discernment and with exercising a judgment, knowing when to react and what to give energy towards, everything doesn't need a reaction and everything does not deserve your energy. And I think that's just another big lesson. But also, as we get into that, because I definitely saw, the good thing is I saw heads nodding, so I know you have like thoughts around that. But I also wanted to say, I wanted to re-highlight like what you said too, Mom, in your story. I didn't get a chance to go back to that, but I have to agree about wanting to fix things, because speaking of like knowing when to react or knowing when to give energy to something, I gotta agree, especially with my babies too, because they're all girls, so it's all emotion. Like I don't know anything but emotion in my family, so it's just like, and I agree. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, so then you could do this, this, and this, and I'm like, oh, you didn't need any of that. Like, but I thought it's less of me if I don't show up in this way, because as your mother, like if I'm not giving a solution, am I even being helpful? But it's like, oh my gosh, yes, you can. Like your presence is enough enough. Like it doesn't always have to be that, but just knowing that, like when to react and when all that. So yeah, I feel like I saw thoughts brewing, but go ahead, Mom.
Well, no, it just kind of it made me think when she was talking about waiting for somebody to punch her,
Yeah.
I don't know. Remember when we went to the haunted house?
Oh
So
God.
it just kind of made me giggle because, I said we had never really done haunted things because there were so many triggers and trauma and very bad things. So like haunted things. But a couple of years ago, we attended our first like haunted thing, and oh my goodness, Coco went through that thing backwards with her fist, ready to hit anyone. But in the end, it was like I was kind of joking with my friends, my close circle, and I said, it was really actually a good exercise in seeing how far we've healed, like
Right. This
it
is
really
true.
was. It really was
Right.
an example. And I was like, we actually, because I was terrified to take them. Like,
Right.
what would be their responses? What would happen? But they wanted to go. And so, she went through there just ready to hit anything that came at her, but she was just holding it and stuff. And, so that's why I was kind of giggling when she
The only reason I got out is because my friend was dragging me along.
So she was, but it was just cute, and that's the thing when you live in that hyper vigilance that she was, and that my children did. But I think I don't even know what the question was. See, here I go again.
Oh no, but see, that's what I'm saying. No, I love it because when we were talking about like what to, I think even me, I was like, I forgot, I don't care. But I was like, it was like choosing what to react to, what to give energy towards, how we exercise judgment. We were all over, but I think that too. I appreciate that it was a great test. So I do appreciate about your stories that it was a great test of like where you were and where you were at. And actually, it just gave me a new question. So no worries, you're off the hook because I'll give you a new one. Is that I definitely see some great times where you get it right with each other. Like there's been, good blend, like all that. Has there been a time where you got it really wrong with one another and had to really like work on that? Like, and of course, I'm sure you didn't mind apologizing to one another, probably figuring it out, but like, has there any been time like that? And like, a big lesson that you had to learn from one another or anything like that might have happened with either of you?
You probably have a better idea than I do.
Oh, I
can't
was
think
like,
of any.
oh, I feel, give me mom points today. Because I was just like, she's probably going to have to take this question because I really don't know that Coco and I've experienced those things.
At least not yet. Hopefully.
We're just, we're only 14. So come on.
Right.
We are.
Well, I want to be 14. She is 14. I'm just kidding.
I agree. I'll go back.
Over. No, I really don't. So I figured I was going to have to deflect to you, but one thing about it though, you have to understand that, or people, and you don't have to understand it, but our relationship was totally different. As far as my understanding, I still don't know everything about Coco's story. I know enough, and I know when different things come up and we have to deal with them, but I still don't know. Her counselors know more about her story and have helped her through things, I think, than I do. But I remember, and you'll remember this story too, I think a big part of it was she was taught from, age 3, 4, 5, not to trust me and that I didn't care and that all these different things. So those things were put into her head. And so there was a breakdown in a relationship from her side to me long before I ever knew. Right. So she had a complete different view of who I was than I deserved in a sense, because I did a lot of things and I was there, but what was being told to her or fed to her in different ways. And I can totally see why my kids would think I didn't care, based upon what they were being told. And, here I am living in this house and these things are happening. And I'm sure I had responses that I wasn't aware of, but because they knew what was happening to them, and then my response, and then the abuser uses that to say, hey, yeah, see, your mom doesn't care. And they're like, oh, he's right. Well, so there was a breakdown from my daughter to me long before I was ever given the information that there was a problem. So the relationship I thought I had with my daughter, I didn't have. Right. It was completely, I didn't have it. And I can remember when you were like in the 2nd grade, and we were laying under her bed. She had gone under her bed crying and all this stuff. And I had no other choice but to squeeze up under that bed with her, And I couldn't fight back my tears, and all I could do was cry with her. And I just kept saying over and over, it wasn't that mama didn't care, it was that mama didn't know. And I just had to keep saying that over and over. And so here, I had never really done anything, in my opinion, to lose my kids' trust, or to make them not trust me, or to, think I wouldn't be there. But my kids didn't trust me, and my kids didn't think I would be there, and they didn't believe any of that. So that was a whole rebuilding that I had to do that I didn't even know that wasn't there, if that makes sense, like, so there was a lot that it was almost like a second chance at it, but it shouldn't, like, I didn't do anything. I wasn't the one that abused my child,
Right.
so it was
From a logical standpoint, it wasn't anything. There should have been trust there,
Right.
but once you go through it and look at it from every single possible angle,
Absolutely.
you can like see that it was only one person's fault. It was the abuser's fault for snapping that trust without anyone knowing.
Right. Absolutely. And
I
I think
that's a big thing for survivors, like,
right.
and our trust issue,
Absolutely.
the people around us that care, that love and care us the most, we don't even know it because those relationships are broken down, and we don't even realize they're broken down. So trust and vulnerability and all that is just so huge and stuff. So
Oh no, I agree. And I know that, and I kind of had a feeling even when I asked that question that most likely that was what the answer was gonna be. But I did have an agenda behind it because I wanted to like bring up exactly what you said though. It's just that sometimes, I think too, like in both. So like as parents and as, because of course I'm still my mother's daughter, and I still work on that relationship too, even as an adult, and try to, work on that. But I think sometimes, like on the flip side of that, we do think sometimes we're getting it wrong when really there is no like manual to this. Really, the best thing you can do is just to show up and to be there and to just show that you care. You know what I mean? And just have that. And I just think sometimes we make it more complicated than we need to. So I think, we do that. And I can see why. You know what I mean? I think some of that sometimes come from a genuine place where we're just desperate to get it right, that we think we have to do so much more. Sometimes it's also just that we don't, take the time to just see what the other person needs. We don't just simply ask, like, what do you need right now? Like, what can I do? So I think like, that's where we further complicate it. But I think that's what's been beautiful to hear, especially with your relationship, that, there's a lot that's been going well versus any other way, just because most of the time that's what you do. You show up for one another and you keep those levels of communication open. And that's what I'm curious about too. Like, are there things that you both do on a regular basis to keep that relationship flourishing? I mean, I'm sure, coffee and cocoa helps probably, like, cause that's something you share, and something like that. But are there things, is it that, or is it things outside of that too, that you do on a regular basis that helps you to keep pouring into one another and building that relationship?
I think it's like talking to each other every day. Like,
Absolutely.
it doesn't even have to be about anything specific. Be like,
Right.
What do you want for dinner?
Right.
Tell her what I want for dinner. There you go.
Right.
And just talking.
Right.
And sometimes like sitting down and sharing like what we think about things. Like if we're watching the news and we especially, yeah.
We got into recently watching the news.
There's a lot to talk about on the news, man. A lot going on.
Up to like 2 a.m. watching the news together.
So it was the president was doing a State of the Union address.
Oh Lord, okay.
So I know, and it's not something that we typically watch or do, or politics in our house, but for some reason Coco and I we watched it together.
Right.
But what we did after that was really interesting. So I took her on different channels and I had her switch to different channels after the State of the Union address. And I'm like, okay. And we listened to it and it sounded all great and everything else. And then we went on certain channels and it was like, these people all, you know what I'm saying? Like you go on one news station and they had everything negative to say and they picked it apart, blah, 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 blah. And then you went on another news station and it sounded like the most perfect thing ever. And it was
both sides sounded right.
Both sides sounded, we discussed how both sides sounded exactly right, whether you were on the right side of the political sphere or on the left side. The left side sounded that the president sounded factual, the left side sounded factual, the right side sounded factual, but we were just like hopping those channels. But it ended up being like 2 a.m. She had to go to school the next day.
I was gonna ask, was this on the weekend? Ooh, shame. No,
but we kind of couldn't stop.
Yeah, of course.
And we could bring it back to the stories like, you
Yeah.
see how now a court system or a
Right.
judge or somebody has to try to figure out because one
Right.
person makes their side sound really good and another person makes their side sound really good. And so, how does somebody listening without knowing not being there and making the decisions or not really seeing it firsthand, how does somebody do that? So it led into a lot of great discussions, and Coco and I had a really great night.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Go to
what's
work
funny about
and
that
school
is
the next
I
day.
actually, yep, I was gonna say too, it actually made me think about what you said earlier, ironically. So when you were saying that you have to counteract those negative messages that you hear. And so like in this case from a perpetrator, but also like that happens all the time, right? Like I'm sure Coco, you've seen bullying occurs, you know what I mean? I'm sure you've seen those, like students who, and I'm not gonna lie, like they actually might be coming from places of insecurity. That's also something I try to talk about with my daughters. Like if they're inflicting that on you, sweetie, it might be that they might be going through some things themselves. You know what I mean? Like they might be hurting, and unfortunately, they're showing it outwardly in that way. But I think it's just amazing that yes, the power of those messages, the messages that we receive. You can hear like all these positive messages, but that negative one, oh, it's super loud. You know what I mean? So it's like you're gonna hear that one the loudest. Like they could have given you like 50 compliments today, and you're like, yeah, but they said that like I don't do this one thing. So I think what's been amazing to hear too with with both of you is that reassurance that you continue to give. And so like, and I think we've been dropping a lot of gems on like, please take notes, everyone, on like, what it takes. But as you can see, it's not like hard things. We haven't said anything that's like wild. Like, so what you should do is take a parenting class. You're gonna have to go do these things Monday through Friday. No, it's like conversations, like talk with one another. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to apologize to your children. That's something I had to work on. My mom never apologized to me for anything. And I was like, I'm not going to do that with my kids. Like, I feel like we need to have restorative conversations. We're human. We make mistakes. So it's like that. But it's also like being able to provide those positive messages to your daughter. I love that because I mean, she's going to hear a lot of negative things. And I just feel like sometimes just doing that. And I think the other reason why you made me think of it is because sometimes we do have to provide, like constructive feedback to our children. You know what I mean? We do have to set them on the right path. If you're doing something wrong, Coco, I'm gonna let you know. You know what I mean? But like at the same time, I think we got to make sure we don't forget to also uplift them. You know what I mean? So that they're getting that support from home and they're not getting it from elsewhere. So it's like sometimes just being that like, hey, you did a really great job today. Hey, you could have did whatever it is. So I just love that, also that's what I heard when you shared that, about like how you connect and all those things. So yes. So with that, sorry, I didn't have a question there. My bad. That was just observation. I was like, wait, I didn't
No,
even.
but I was
Yeah.
going to say something, and
Yes, absolutely.
to parents to be mindful because
Absolutely.
the one thing I always, and probably because I was broken myself,
Absolutely.
I was a survivor of child sexual abuse, and the memories, and I didn't get to begin to deal with mine until I was 38. Well, Coco was already born, so were three of her siblings,
Right.
so I'm having to figure it out. But that was always kind of my viewpoint, like always be understanding of everyone else. Oh, it's, this is why, they may be acting that way because they have a hard time or whatever. And what I had no idea. So I was always telling my children to basically be understanding of everyone else. And I didn't understand that people needed to be understanding of my own children. I thought
Yeah.
I never knew that, they were affected by these things. And they're probably looking at me like, well, duh, lady, they're probably looking at me like, what are you talking about? Like
Right.
people need, so like when those kids would hit at school in kindergarten or first grade or, whatever else. And so I think sometimes we have to be careful that we don't set our kids up because I think I almost set my kids up for
Right.
that by always telling them to be mindful of other people. And so now I believe that my children, we've kind of come full circle. Like I didn't have boundaries, so I couldn't teach my kids boundaries. And so now yes, be understanding of those other people out in the world, but you don't have to take their abuse. And kids
Yep.
can be abusive, parents can be abusive, you know, and I don't mean just abusive in like a physical or sexual nature. I mean just people joke. Well, that joke doesn't really go over well.
Verbally abusive.
Yeah,
Yep.
or just because they're in pain, they're saying things and stuff like that. And I'm not talking like a sustained abuse, but I'm just so I think we just had to be careful that as I tell my kids, it's not their fault that these things are inside of them. That somebody else chose to do this. but it is your responsibility to deal with. And I think that's the one thing that we are getting wrong in society, is just this pass open gate, like, oh, you've been traumatized and therefore that's why you act the way you do. And we have to be ultra sensitive to you. No, you have to be ultra sensitive to the world and understand that you have triggers and you respond and you react in different ways. And we're not allowed to do that. I've had my children bite at school. I've had my children do things, and those who know their story completely see that they were trauma responding, that they were triggered, they were responding, they were, or not responding, they were reacting, they weren't responding, they were reacting to the moment, to the situation, to the fear that they were in. But they still have to be held accountable, because we have to be held accountable. And I just believe I'm accountable for my own triggers, trauma, whatever. It doesn't give me permission to go around and take somebody's head off and say, well, I had it. And I think that's where we're getting it wrong in this super, I don't get me wrong. I do a lot of work to support survivors, and I really deal with a lot of people's trauma and everything else. But we have to own our own stories, and we have to own our own stuff that's inside of us.
It's like going around and like knowing someone's a murderer, and then he comes up and stabs you. He's like, oh, well, you should have known I'm a murderer. That's an extreme version, but still the
No,
same.
absolutely. And I definitely agree, because I do think that, and that's funny because that's actually something I had wrote about too, like in a recent poem that I had shared, as I like to dib and dab sometimes in poetry. But I agree. Like, I think big part of with healing, first of all, with healing, I love how we had talked about before too. It's not this, it doesn't follow this one particular path. It's messy. It's like there's a lot that goes with it, but you do have to own that piece as well. So I agree. I think that it's absolutely no survivor's fault, what they went through and what they had to endure, but their healing is definitely their part of their journey. And it's definitely that part you can own, and that part you can you can absolutely, you get to have control over at least that part. You know what I mean? You may not have had control over the trauma and the abuse, but this is one part that you can own and that you can develop more, and that nobody can take away from you either, since it is yours. And so I think
the big thing there is, and the hard part I feel for survivors, which is why, I created the TWC Clubhouse and stuff. The part I feel for survivors in is what I've learned through doing coffee, or what we've learned through doing coffee and cocoa, is the ability for resources out there, and the ability for counselors and stuff. And so I get it. And so having tools and resources, and that's why I believe that we should, we need to be teaching this stuff, not, trauma informed. It doesn't mean we all walk on eggshells, in my opinion. Trauma informed means we start educating people on how to handle trauma, both as receivers of it and givers of it.
absolutely.
And we know, even Coco, I was so proud of her to say it, because it's obviously transitioned. That was one thing that the counselors that I learned as a parent going through this, was when my child's response does not match the situation. So here this thing happened and my child is like, oh, I know that it's something deeper. So when that, when their response doesn't match what's going on, then it has nothing to do with what's going on.
Absolutely.
And stuff. So, and evidently it's transferred over, because I heard her speaking about it. And so when we're able to recognize that in people and be like, whoa, and kids can do it. Kids can do it. So we can teach these children how to be trauma informed, but not where they're victims. They're, we're allowing a bunch of people to go around schools and basically can, just act out. It's awful. So sorry, I don't know if I made much sense there to what I'm trying
of course. As always, you always there's always that part at the end where you minimize it. Not at all. No, if anything, it's all tweetable things. I'm these need to go in more books. It needs to be disseminated and more people need to hear it. No, absolutely. I really appreciate what you had to say. And actually, perfect transition, because I just realized we've been talking this whole time and I barely have shed light on coffee and cocoa. So for those who may not know what that is, I was I totally forgot. You are the mother-daughter duo known as Coffee and Cocoa. So if you could tell us exactly what that's been like. I think I heard there's been bits and pieces, but again, viewers, this may be their first time meeting you both. Maybe today was the one episode they tuned into and they didn't get to see the others. Could you tell us what Coffee and Cocoa is, what it, the goal of it, what it does for you, all those wonderful things about it?
Coffee and Cocoa is me and my mom going and sharing our experiences, our knowledge, and how and our thoughts about big topics, especially sexual abuse, because we both have experienced that. It's our experiences we're sharing, so there you go. But we talk about all abuses. We bring people on to talk about what they've gone through and how they're healing and their healing journey, to give others a sense of connection. So if they don't connect with one person, they connect with another. And just trying to find as many people so we can show people that they're not alone. And I think that's the real big part of it, because we don't want, when I learned there were other people was when I I started doing coffee and cocoa and found out there were others out here that experience and felt the same thing I did. Absolutely. I was told there were others, but I didn't see any. So I was like, oh yeah, there's others, sure. But we're just one of the, I guess, amazing. I don't know how to
go ahead, Tutu. No, that horn. Right.
We're out there and we're just trying to show others that it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to share. We may be the first person you're seeing or the 50th. Right. But hopefully one of us, of all the people who are doing this, can get to you and help you find a way so you're not locked up in a cage anymore because of something someone else did.
Right. Oh gosh, yes. And again, she's only 14. I just can't. Okay, we're just gonna have to go to repeat. Like, well, dang. But I'm like, all right, listen, my life made. Okay, so like I didn't need to live by that. But I agree, and I think that
that's what I said when she was,
I know, I'm just like, all right.
And she was 10. I literally asked her one day, because when you go through this, and let's talk about that. Coffee and Cocoa started out raising education, and that's what we mostly do, is raising education and awareness about child sexual abuse.
Right.
And her wanting to find the voice. And so we do two things. We do Tuesdays. We try to put something out every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is about tough topics. And so that was the goal of building trusted relationships. As we talked about earlier, we didn't have a trusted relationship. And it wasn't necessarily because I did something or she did something, it's because somebody else did something. Right. So that was the goal behind Tuesdays. And Fridays, our goal is to share other people's stories. And so that, not everyone is going to connect to Coco's story or my story. And to be honest, we don't really share our stories, but we do
share our experiences.
Yeah, and we connect with our guests and stuff, but we share other people's stories so that people can find, like Coco said, somebody they connect with. Right. Not everyone is going to connect to me. They're going to be like, and we try to share men, and because men are abused, women Absolutely. Are abused. But the big thing here is that most children most children don't speak. Okay. Right. And then if they ever do, it's usually around the age of 52 is the average. 52 before they find their voice. So that's another thing about my children that is rare. It's not that Coco's not the only child that's ever spoke, but it's not common. Right. And so we have these kids toting this stuff around and growing up, and then all of a sudden their life explodes in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I have people in groups that are still healing at 70 years old, that missed out on an entire life. Right. But that's what I, through when I learned, healing was important to me. And I used to work 3 jobs in order to pay for our counseling in our house, because it was high priority to me, because I knew that my they were going to take this into their future and stuff. So it's all about that connection. It's all about building it, and being there and letting people know they're not alone. Absolutely. You're not alone. And that was a big thing. Coco was told that there were other people that were abused. You hear the numbers, 1 in 4, 1 in 6, but she never saw them. She was in a room with her counselor. Right. So who are these people? Where are they? You say they're there. And we started doing Coffee and Cocoa, and they started showing up. And she started sending stories. And of course, as a mother, for those wondering, I was worried about Coco getting like secondary trauma, being so I used to drive her crazy because she wanted to do this. And I'm just like kind of the added part here just to give her some confidence, but I don't know what I'm doing. She just hits the live button. I was like, okay, whatever. But she connects, and that's the amazing thing, that we started doing coffee and cocoa when she was 12. Right? We started doing coffee and cocoa when
like the end of October of 2020.
Yeah, so a little bit before she turned 13, so we started doing coffee and cocoa when she was 12 years old. But the amazing, and I drove her crazy asking her all the time, are you okay? And what I finally sat back and saw was that for the first time, even though these people were much different in age, our guests and stuff, Coco felt at home for the first time because these people understood her. And that was when I finally began to hush up, because I realized that coffee and cocoa was giving my daughter the same exact thing that it gave to other people, was that ability to connect and people that understood her. But I asked her when she was 10. I said, is it hard to be 10 years old and in the 5th grade and have this much wisdom? And she said, yes, sometimes. Well,
it's true.
Most 10-year-olds don't have, like we talked about, the discernment that she had about people.
Absolutely.
Like, most 10-year-olds don't have the discernment that says, that's not a person I want in my circle. In the 5th grade, she told me, I'm not my best me when I'm around her. Do you know how many adults can't say that?
Oh, amen. I know. We need that language.
Stand back here.
But it's true.
So coffee and cocoa gives her a place where she can feel at home, and people that get her and understand her, and just as much as she understands them. Because I don't care how old you are, I don't care what kind of trauma you've been through, whether it's spiritual or this, that, or the other, spiritual, sexual, it doesn't matter. That people connect when people are vulnerable, and that's what people are looking for, is to connect with others, and to have places where we can truly be authentic and be who we are and be loved for who we are. That's what we need, is to be loved for who we are. And
definitely.
But I think most of the world, how many people, it doesn't matter how much, I know people that have all kinds of money, I know people that have none, and it doesn't matter. They all want the same thing, and so many of them don't feel good about themselves. They're not good enough. They're not this, they're not that. We all have the same feelings.
Absolutely. Agreed. That's what I'm like, I think that's another thing too, that we always sometimes don't always see, that like as humans, I mean, that's what brings us together. That's what we all have in common. And I think sometimes we don't always acknowledge that. And so it creates a lot more of those differences and separation, but there's a lot more that can bring us together, and so like, and this is definitely one of those things. And like, and even if we haven't experienced the same kind of pain, we're all capable of feeling pain. And at one point in time, I'm sure we felt it. Like, I don't know who in the world has gone through life and hasn't experienced pain at some point in time. So definitely.
I don't know where I just had this thought, but you want to know why we connect too, Coco and I?
Absolutely.
Music.
Oh, hi, do tell.
So one of the things we do is we have some ridiculous dance parties where we turn up the music and dance in our house or in our car.
80s music.
I mean, music really is, I'm telling you, it's a jam. Yes. It's like therapeutic. And speaking of healing, I mean, like, my goodness, we need that though. Like, we need that. And like, that's why I love arts too. And just ways for people to express themselves, and we need all of it. And that's why I love too, that I know that, with, everything that you offer, like you said, with tools and resources, some of them like are in that arena. But yes, I want to give you a chance to say that too, because I was like, dang, talking to y'all, clearly time flies when we're talking. So like, it's super fun to do, but I want to give you a chance to say that as well. So definitely curious, like what all that, I know coffee and cocoa is one thing, but then there's also the TWC. I happen to know about it, but I don't think I've given you the floor to say what that is yet. But I definitely wanted you to say that, but also just future goals. I know I heard earlier from Coco, but if you don't mind sharing again, like some of your goals and things for the future, but also collectively, like, do you all see, what do you all see happening? Do you think it'll always be the coffee and cocoa duo? Do you see changes? Like, what's your plan for the future with coffee and cocoa?
Well, I'm going to let Coco take that on the goal.
Oh, hey.
Because I don't know that we've talked about him in a while, so I'm excited to hear him.
I know for me, I want to have a coffee and cocoa ball. At some point, I don't care if it's 2 years, 4 years, 8 years. I don't care. I want a ball for coffee and cocoa.
Okay.
Oh, just like our benefit ball we used to do. My kids used to be my date for a benefit ball because they didn't have a date, so they would go and we'd dance the night away. And so,
Aw,
and it was, we raised money for St. Jude's. St. Jude's was what it was.
wow.
So,
Beautiful. Love
All I
that.
knew is it was a party.
Right. At the end of the day. Well, I mean, that is the point, and people will come out for a party. And to dance, apparently, to 80s music. So there you go. You have to have the 80s music there. Oh, that's wonderful though. But so hopefully, so you see like future events, like community things and those things of that nature. Beautiful. And so what is it? Like I said, I want to give you a chance to say too. Like, so again, I hear the two. So I hear Tuesdays, there's Fridays, but then there's also some other things that you offer as well, correct?
So, you know, I've expanded. That's what Coco does. And you know, as much as, and Coco wants to continue to do those things. But
Yes.
we've learned, you know, in this next level of healing that coffee and cocoa brought to us that we didn't expect by sharing and connecting with all these survivors. We didn't know we were going to get like more healing from it.
Right.
So I've created the TWC Clubhouse. So you can go to twcclubhouse.com. I've created that. And what that is communities of people that are healing and growing together. Currently, there's 8 hours a week. So that's 32 hours a month to healing community for $47 a month. I'm just like blown away. Like, and so we have different facilitators in there from, oh gosh, I think there's 3 countries on there represented right now: New Zealand, Canada, and the US. There's people from different states and different provinces in there. We're also adding Costa Rica and Ireland facilitators. So the goal there is that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, eventually you will be, you know, child sexual abuse survivors especially, but anybody will have communities to jump into, because some of our communities are really good for like domestic violence or, you know, just any kind of thing, but they're really good if you just need a place. If you're isolated, alone, connect, want to push to another level, they really serve anyone. But you know, people just need to be aware that there's a lot of child sexual abuse survivors in there, and sometimes those subjects, we talk about them, but they're places of healing. So meditation is coming into it, writing's coming into it. We have different authors that kind of push, or not push, but ask questions and challenge your thinking. And I just love it. I love the TWC Clubhouse. It's exactly what I wanted. And it's just been great. So I literally cried last night. We finished our first month of kind of a dry run with we had participants and small groups, and Coco knows I cried afterwards, because when we finished the last community last night, somebody said that they were ready to sign up for full membership, because it was a place to connect and it was safe. And this was a person that there was 4 times they came and joined the community, and the first time they didn't even have their camera on, and halfway through they were able to turn their camera on. They felt safe enough to turn their camera on, and by week 4, just in those 4 hours, that just the transformation. And not to say that happens ever, but that was just, and they felt so safe and connected to others, and they needed that connection. But for them, they're isolated too, and they're scared of people, and they're scared to trust. And the cool thing is that we connect people all around the world, and you're safe because you get to Zoom. So we're safe behind these computers. If you need to exit that room, if that person scares you, you know, it doesn't matter. If whatever, you can shut that computer down. Nobody's coming to your house. Nobody knows where you live. And it's like you can begin to learn about relationships and learn about boundaries and learn about things, and do it with people who understand you. And I think that's the biggest thing. Absolutely. Like people to connect and understand. So you can check out Coffee and Cocoa. All of that is all on the TWC Clubhouse.
See, I told you she gets excited.
I do. I get so excited about it.
Amazing.
And I love it. I know it just makes, but it makes also other people wanting to just plug in, because agreed, like with that kind of energy, like who wouldn't want to be a part of that? You know what I mean? And grow in that and just feel safe in that, like you said. So I love it. So I'm glad that that's a place where you can also find the Coffee and Cocoa stuff, because I was gonna ask that next, if other people want to connect with that. But also final encouraging messages. I'm just wondering if there's also any other closing or wonderful pieces of advice that you all wanted to share, because we've shared a lot of gems here. I hope people were taking notes. But you know, any other messages of encouragement or any pieces of advice that you have as a daughter, as a mother, as a person, you know, for anyone listening.
I'll go first, so we can leave it on the best. So we can leave Coco to
okay, best for last.
You know, I just encourage you, just don't beat yourself up. Take the next right step. We all make mistakes. We all fall down. I look like I got it together today, but what you didn't see was I couldn't speak 2 words without boo-hooing.
You also don't see that she has lipstick on her teeth.
Oh, I cannot. I cannot. See, you are good with the zingers. That was funny. I was like, wait, what? Oh,
No, and here I try to go up to the camera to see, like, okay, I'll just stay back here and fix that later. So, but don't beat yourself up.
right.
We all make mistakes. We all get back up. There was days that I didn't shower for 3 days trying to make it through the next step. So you just hold on, you find people that you connect with, and those people will change along the way of your story, and it's okay to let them go. You're doing the best you can today, and the only thing you have to do is make another step and reach out. But I'm going to give you the best now.
Hey.
I will say this once and I will say it again. Find your voice. I don't care who you have to go to. I don't care if you have to punch someone to get there. As long as you can find, and I don't agree that punching people. I mean, if someone okay, that was a bad point. But I was trying to say that do whatever you need to, in reason, to find your voice, to tell someone. I don't care if I don't care if 10 people say you are crazy. I don't care if 20 people say. As long as you keep going, there's going to be that one person who will finally understand you. Because either one person, I know one person out of those 20 people probably have been through the exact same thing you have, but are too scared to admit it. They've probably been telling themselves the same thing, that it didn't happen. It was all in my brain, but it didn't. It actually happened.
Right.
And you are not crazy. Go and find someone to talk to, whoever it is. Some random person on the street, be safe. But someone who makes you feel safe and comfortable, and where you can just let it all go.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I agree. Don't want to ruin it. And so all I would say is that, speaking of finding other people, hopefully you have found in Coffee and Cocoa 2 other great sources of support. And so if anything resonated with you today, please connect with them, because absolutely they have obviously such incredible things to share, but also the fact that they just want to, they just genuinely want to be able to help you. I'm sure even if it's just having a conversation, they're here for it. So please reach out if you ever want to. So ladies, thank you so much for being on. Yeah, you know.
Clubhouse, you can find us there.
Yes, definitely do. So yes, please plug in, please connect, and thank you both for being here today.
Thank
and everybody
you.
that tuned in. Absolutely.